Hey, it's Carrie.
And Ashley.
We welcome you to the Self-Care Cafe. We are both health professionals and moms and nature lovers and food lovers and love helping women get over dieting and just start living. We think that talking about bodies and perfect bodies and dieting is just boring.
Did we put you to sleep there, Carrie?
Yes. So if you are ready to ditch dieting and get to living and talk about more important things, then you are in the right place. We don't put shame and guilt on the menu here. You don't even have to tip us.
Nope.
Come hang with us. The advice is free. We want to have a bunch of girlfriends to just hang out with and get real with, and it's time to start living, ladies.
Hey, Carrie.
Hey, Ash. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Okay. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm tired, and you ever go through those times when you just want to run away?
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'll come out of it, but yeah, I just kind of want to run away. I bet some of our listeners feel the same way.
I'm sure. And if not most of the time, at least from time to time.
Yes, for sure. For sure. What do we have on the menu today?
Well, I was thinking we could chat about schedule changes with it's about to be summer vacation, but this can apply to any school vacations or any
Holidays.
holidays, vacations you take. Anything that changes up your schedule, your routine, and how you can still keep the things that you need for your self-care.
And hang on to your sanity.
So you don't want to run away.
You don't want to run away. Well, that's what made me think of this topic, as we had discussed it before, is I can tell when I haven't been really keeping up with my self-care when I start feeling like this, when I get that overwhelm, right? It's just like everything feels overwhelming and I'm irritable and I just want to scratch someone's eyes out. And like I said, just run away. So yeah, that's what kind of spurred this idea for today's episode, because I know I'm not the only one that feels like this.
Yeah. And I think it's hard too because once we get in a groove or a routine and we're feeling okay about it, of course it changes because that's just how life works.
Life, yep.
Whether it's a new responsibility or whether it's a schedule change like we're talking about today, or I don't know, different financial responsibilities come up. So many different things can make our habits and routine different. And as soon as things change, we tend to put that self-care or activities we need to feel better kind of on the back burner. And we mean to come back to them, but I feel like it takes a lot longer to do it. And so, like we talk about with dieting, sometimes when we're stressed or when things are different, that's when we tend to go back into that diet mindset. And I feel like it's the same way. Like anytime something's different, we don't tend to use those like growth opportunities like we might have in the past. I don't know, that's not really the right words, but
Yeah, the way I no, I know what you're saying. The way I picture is like we all have our comfort zone, and in our comfort zone are a lot of those old beliefs and ways of thinking. But as we grow, I kind of picture as our comfort zone expanding, because
Mhm.
you want those things to become a part of your comfort zone. Um, yeah, as you grow. And so as it grows and expands, your comfort zone gets bigger, but then life throws you that inevitable curveball.
Mhm.
And it's almost like that the comfort zone is like a big rubber band, like it keeps expanding, right? And then you hit that curveball and it pops you back into the center of your comfort zone, where it's most familiar to you, with
Right.
all those old behaviors and habits and beliefs. Um, but and that's what we are working on, right? Is expanding that comfort zone. But yeah, this time of year or the holidays, or like you talked, the different changes in work schedules, or maybe all of a sudden your daycare provider is sick, or like all there's always these little curveballs. And I know for me, through the years, clients would say, well, I'll work on that, whether it's self-care or whatever, when life calms down.
I hear
And
that all the time too.
I'll go inside because okay. And I wait a little bit longer, and they're like, well, it's gonna get better like next week. And it's just, so finally I say to them, okay, so this is your life. This is what we have to work with. So how can we work with what we have?
Right.
Because we often think, well, I want my life to be calmer and not so busy, once this sports season ends, or once my child's production is over. We always think things are going to slow down, and they don't.
They don't. Never. Or maybe they do for like a minute or a hot second, but then it's something else. It's always something.
Right.
I
For
feel
that hot second, you don't want to do anything.
right.
You're just exhausted, and who wants to add and try something new at that point? You just want to
Yeah. And then another piece too is for people that don't have schedule or routine really, like people that have different rotating schedules or work like overnight hours or work from home or kind of like not the typical 9 to 5, which a lot of people don't work a 9 to 5 anymore. It's
right.
it's so different now that there's a lot more working from home going on or, just whatever. Lots of
Right.
different reasons to have um less
Yeah.
traditional work.
Yeah, or even like shift work, or oh, I don't know how people do the rotating shifts. But some people do. And so no matter what your life looks like right now, how do you fit self-care into that? And maybe we should sort of quickly define what we mean by self-care.
Mhm. So we think of self-care more as the things that you need to do to take care of yourself on a day-to-day, weekly basis. So again, you don't want to run away. um, so that you can function and, give what you want to be able to give, or have the energy that you want to have for different, upkeep or activities or fun stuff or whatever to perform at your best or at your current best.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point, because your best will change depending on where you are in your life, your season of life, your health at the time,
And
um,
your self-care.
your self-care.
It all kind of loops back.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to it yet, in episode 4, we discussed our PMS model. This basically is a body, mind, spirit model, right? But
Yep.
we use physical, mind, soul for the cute little PMS
Yeah.
framework, because it's easy to remember and it gets people like, you think PMS is good? Yeah, we do. Um, because those are all the three spheres, and they're all interconnected. And when you are taking care of yourself at all of those levels, you're authentic. You also can take care of your loved ones
Mhm.
at a higher level too, and serve other people at a higher level when you are also taking good care of yourself.
Yeah, so if you haven't yet, we go into way more detail about what we're talking about right now, in episode 4. So let's back a couple.
Yeah. So I guess we would ask you, if you're when you're listening to this right now, is what does self-care mean to you? And what are you doing right now for it?
Yeah, those are big questions.
They are big questions. And like Ashley, what do you include in your self-care?
Yeah, I think Eating on a regular basis is a big one for me because I used to work like a 9 to 5, and I used to work at places where food was just readily available, so I could just go grab it whenever I wanted to. And I really only had to worry about dinner for the family when I got home from work. But now that I'm working from home, it's a little bit different. And sometimes we get busy and I either forget to eat or don't eat enough to support myself for the day. And those days definitely tend to be more difficult because I get hangry when I'm hungry.
Too. Me too.
Um, so I think working on eating meals in general, but also eating more balanced meals more of or most of the time. That's been something I've been working on. And then getting outside is a big one for me because I know that I feel so much better even if I just go like sit outside and look around.
Yeah.
I really like nature and looking at cool things and just noticing the colors and the animals or the insects or the whatever might be out there. Walking is even better. So I like to take the dog for a walk a couple times a day. And the dog loves to go for a walk like first thing in the morning after I drop my daughter off at school. And I'm not a morning person at all. And so I have a hard time getting going sometimes, but after I get up and do it, I feel so much better because, as we all get older, our bodies get a little stiffer, they get a little bit harder to move. And so you wake up and you don't really want to do anything because you don't feel great. But moving, I've realized,
Listen
a
to
little
you.
bit, right? Like you have to do it yourself to believe it, kind of.
Yes, well, and I know. I feel like some of um the ailments I've had with my joints and things like that ha has been a good thing for me because it helps me to see what other people or my clients when they complain about the same thing. It's like, I get it now. Um, it's hard and you can be more stiff in the morning. And I will say, like, I also was never a morning exerciser. In college, I taught fitness classes and I wouldn't take one to teach before 9 a.m.
Mhm.
And of course, now keep in mind I was, 18, 19 at the time, but I had to get up and have breakfast and a shower and
Yep.
before I felt ready to move like that. But then I had kids, and the only way I was going to get any sort of workout in would be first thing in the morning. And they were also early risers.
Mm.
So I had to get up even earlier in order to beat them, to get most of it in.
That's a
So
great example of what we're talking about today, though, because you realized that it was an important part of your day or your routine or your self-care routine, or however we want to talk about that. And you realized that it's not going to happen the way that I've been doing it based on what my day looks like right now and everyone else's needs too. So I took the opportunity to still include it, but I put it in at a different time of day.
right. Right. And that's just how I did it. Some another way sometimes depending on the day, and the kind of night we had, if there was a baby up, keeping me up at night, it might have been squeezing, while I was making their lunches or whatever in somewhere in the kitchen doing something, doing some squats and leg lifts and um going out and sprinting around the house with the boys, or it's however, you have to be flexible with it. When those of us that are perfectionists tend to get in that rigid mindset with it, so being more flexible and real and being okay with it not being the way you've always done it or
Right,
the way that you think you should do it,
right.
is a really good way. And this is such a common theme, especially with moms, because workshops I've had women there that, we'd be talking about exercise and like, I don't have time, the kids and their activities come first. And, these women were just exhausted and not taking good care of themselves. And let's face it, they were cranky. And So I asked them, tell me how it makes you a better mom to not take care of yourself compared to someone who does take the time to spend some time with girlfriends, maybe go to the gym or work out somewhere or take a class, or just a mom who is devoting a little bit more time to take care of herself. How does it make you a better mom when you are showing up to your family cranky and yelling and irritable and on edge compared to a mom who is taking the time to do it, put some self-care into her routine and take care of herself, who shows up for her family in a better frame of mind?
Right.
See how that reframed it
Mhm.
in a way, because we think so many people, especially moms, I feel like that self-care piece, that taking care of yourself is selfish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And oftentimes if there are kids involved, you can't just leave. You have to have some sort of help or something to allow you to be able to take the time. And obviously, like Carrie just said too, you don't necessarily have to employ other people, because if it's activity that makes you feel better, you can certainly include your family in it. Or if you're doing laundry, we talked about this, I think, in one of our group calls. One of our group participants was talking about how when they take something out of the dryer, one piece of clothing, they put it in its spot and then they go back. And it blew my mind because I never ever in a million years would have ever thought of that. But that's getting more activity in. And if
Right.
that helps you feel better, then that's a great way to do it. If you can't leave the house or if you don't have help or any of that, we can still figure out ways, like Carrie said, being flexible and thinking outside the box maybe a little bit to figure out a way to include the things that we need.
Yeah, and also getting, when your kids a little are old enough, having them help with those activities also, which also creates more time for other things. Why do we feel like we have to do it all?
Right.
Why?
I don't know, but we definitely, most of us do, I think.
Yes, some of it's the perfectionist, right? That
Yep.
that kind of like, well, if if it's going to get done, I have to do it, or if it's going
Mhm.
to get done right, I have to do it.
Yep.
Some of it is people pleasing,
Yep.
wanting to. Um, have we gotten into this subject? This will be another one. The difference between people pleasing and truly serving someone. And I'm not going to get too deep into it right now, but there is a difference. And people pleasing is more self-serving versus truly serving other people from the heart.
Right.
Uh,
I think we
so
talked about it in that episode 4 a little bit also.
okay, yeah, yeah, and we'll do a deep dive into that sometime soon too. But um getting the whole family involved in the chores allow that it opens up more time, so that then you have some more free time, or but and those of us in every different recognizing too, I think is important. And one thing that I've learned kind of more recently, honestly, the last few years, is that some people require more alone time
Yeah.
depending on their personality. um and recognizing that I have to be okay with that.
Hmm.
So, and honestly, I feel like I call myself an introverted extrovert, because I have realized, like, hey, I kind of like alone time too, and that's okay. I don't have to always be in this mix with the family all the time.
Alone time is really important to me as well. And I think I've realized that amount of alone time I need kind of correlates to how stressed or overwhelmed or busy I've been. Um, and prioritizing time for rest. So not necessarily just alone time, but alone time to do nothing or to read or to not worry about things for a few minutes.
Right, right. So how do you find time for your alone time? How do you do it?
Mine is built in a little bit. So My daughter goes with her dad most weekends, so I have most weekends, and my partner works on weekend days. So Saturdays are kind of like my alone days. But I know that that's not how everybody's household works.
Right.
I think scheduling things in as much as you can really help because if it's part of your schedule, you might take it more seriously. Whereas if you're like, oh, I'll just do it when I have a minute, like the whole I'll do it when life slows down, it doesn't work like that. So you have to be intentional about when you would like to do things. Same with meal planning. You have to be intentional about figuring out your meals ahead of time so you don't have to worry about it at the mealtime or with activity. Have to kind of schedule it. And does that mean it has to be the same day, same time every time? No. You could do 5 different types of activities over the 7 days of the week at different times every time, as long as it kind of fits into how it works for you.
Yeah, and some of it's trial and error. I was
Yes,
trying
a
to think
lot of
back
it.
to, yeah, I was trying to think back to when my boys were little. I think part of it was making sure, well, one, getting them into bed at a decent time so that I had some time in the evening, and then also allowing myself to sort of unwind, like reading at bedtime,
Mhm.
uh, and then getting up before everyone else, as long as I wasn't too tired. Like I had to, it's like finding that balance between getting that time, but also getting enough rest.
Exactly. Yeah, because we could easily stay up late for a
Yeah.
long time and then we didn't get enough rest and then we're still back where we started almost.
Yeah. But I've had clients that have done that too. And it's trying to, like I said, trying to find that balance between that time for yourself and not getting so exhausted because you want that time. So, and maybe it doesn't have to be every day.
Right.
Maybe it's once or twice a week that you take it. So yeah, it's just trial and error. But it's also working on your beliefs about that, taking that time for yourself and recognizing and reframing things that if you take care of yourself, you will then be able to take care of your family better
Mm-hmm.
at a higher level.
Yep. Or
You
your
won't,
work or whatever's important to you
yes,
or any of that.
yeah, showing up if you're taking care of parents. How do you want to show up for the people in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And what would help you get to that?
Exactly. And I like how you just said, it doesn't have to be every day.
Right.
Like, um, we talked a lot about activity already, but if you have hobbies that you really enjoy, scheduling time for those. And is it every day? Maybe, maybe not, depending on what it is. Is it twice a month that you go, I don't know, horseback riding or go get massages or whatever it is, spend time with your friends. It doesn't have to be an every day and every week. It can be enough to be helpful for you, but also allowing you time for other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen where some people will have their little group of friends, the girlfriends or whatever, and they will take turns, you know, this week I'm the babysitter for
Mm,
a few hours so the other moms can go and do their thing, and they rotate through like that.
yep.
Just like Ashley said, think outside the box, get creative with it. Chances are other people feel the same way you are. I think that's another thing too, is that sometimes we tend to kind of keep it inside of us and we're afraid to admit how we're feeling with it. And because we feel like, on social media, we see super moms, right?
Yeah.
That do it all and they're always happy to do it. And it's frustrating. But I can guarantee every mom has felt just overwhelm, and however it is that you're feeling, you are not alone. So reach out for help. Come up with suggestions for ways that you and your friends can get some time to themselves. I just think that sometimes we tend to isolate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And one other thing you just made me think of is not only prioritizing the time to do the things that you want, but also being able to say no to things,
Yes.
like setting boundaries about your time. Because, like for me, for example, on Saturdays, I tend to not do anything else. Like I have all this time to myself, so I could go do so many different things, but I tend to just stay at home and rest or, get, another thing that I like to do is I like to get things done on the days that I'm alone, like chores and things. So that way, when my family is home, I don't have to spend the time to, and this obviously doesn't happen all the time, but I feel really great when I can spend the time that I have with my family with them instead of doing the dishes or doing the laundry or whatever. So
Yeah.
figuring out, like Carrie said, like what works for you, what do you like, what makes you feel better? Um, do you like doing a few chores every day and kind of doing it that way, or do you like to do them all at once and kind of be done for the week? Um, Everybody feels differently about how to spend their time with those things.
Right. And also, I think it's important if you have a partner, significant other, husband, to um admit to them too, like when you are feeling like I could really use some help. I'm
Mm,
having a hard time here. Do you have any suggestions or can you help out with something? I think
yep.
sometimes I know for myself, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I felt like it was my duty
Mhm.
to do everything at home, and it's still a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a lot.
4 little ones at home to also take care of, and we homeschooled, and and so it's that communication piece is big too.
Yes, yeah, and like we've been saying, like asking for help, but also even going further than that and talking about responsibilities for everyone. Um, because if you think someone else is supposed to do it, but they think that you're supposed to do it, and you never have the conversation, well, it's probably never going to get done. And then maybe you're both or all or whoever's involved is all irritated about it all the time. Like, so
Or
having,
maybe you are, right?
yeah,
Like, and that resentment builds
yeah.
between the two of you, and yeah.
So yeah, so having the not only the conversation, but the expectations of who's supposed to do what, but laying them out together in that communication piece, like Carrie said.
Yeah. Yeah. And kids can help out around the house. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Even when they're busy with school and their activities, there is nothing wrong. I don't know why we moms feel like we have to do it all for them.
Yeah. I was just thinking about this. My daughter's been asking for an allowance, and I have mixed feelings about it because I feel like if you're in the house, we're all a team and everyone pitches in and you don't get extra credit for doing something that just needs to get done. Yeah,
Right.
going above and beyond and doing something that is not part of like the normal everyday chores, maybe I guess I've sort of been considering, but eh, it's sort of something that's been um applicable in our house this couple weeks, and so
Yeah, I think, and what the way that you put it though is the way I was thinking, like, um, her normal every weekly chores. Here's what, no, we all have to just pitch in and do this,
right.
but here's a list of extra things that you can do.
Mhm.
Uh, like have her clean your car,
Yeah. That's a
detail
great.
it. I've done that with my kids before.
Yep. Yep. If you
Uh,
want to earn money, here are the extra things you can do. Yep.
yeah, like there's always that deeper cleaning around the house too that I hate
Right.
doing.
Yeah. Or the
But
organizing or the whatever.
yeah, yeah. Ooh. So we'll wait and see how that
Yeah,
plays out
we'll
for
see.
you. Um, what I didn't get to what I include with self-care because I
Yes.
went on another tangent per usual. Um, but exercise, and when COVID hit, and talk about like all of our lives changed, right? Um, my business changed. I couldn't teach because a lot of my workouts came from teaching classes.
Yep.
So all of a sudden I couldn't teach anymore.
Mm.
And so that really, and as that sort of, we went through all that, um, and my joints really started rebelling because I wasn't as active as I was. So I've had to actually, it's been good for me though. It's been a good learning experience, to get back into that habit and realizing that really is a huge part of my self-care,
Mm-hmm.
is the activity, stretching, and but also simple things like, and I've done this for years, just making, I wash my face in the morning and at night,
Yep.
and I moisturize. And after my shower, I've always moisturized. At bedtime, putting cream on my feet. And it sounds like so silly, like what it, but a lot of people don't do that. And then they get cracked heels, and I'm being very specific and it sounds silly, but but it's here, it's all of a sudden our feet are bare again, right? And warmer weather. Um, and so it, just those little things, like, and maybe you never thought about that, like just putting cream on your feet at bedtime.
And it's nice because it's like a
Part
little
of
foot
self-care, but
massage. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
part
Oh
of your
yeah, if you have a partner, have them do it.
Yeah, and Carrie, I wonder if this is something because I know you have kind of a particular evening routine in general. So I feel like is that part of your self-care, do you think?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
my evening routine. Yeah, for sure. My morning, I don't have as much of a morning routine, but I do little, like, I try to make sure I get some alone time actually in the morning. I try to do some, like, yoga movement in the morning, and a little bit, like prayer and meditation, at some point in the morning. Um, my sleeping's a little wonky, um, right now, so some mornings I'm like, ugh.
Yep.
But again, because of that, like, where I'm having sleep issues, and it is more, it's trying to maintain something in the morning, um because otherwise I feel like my whole day just is off if
Okay.
I don't do at least a part of my self-care in the morning. um so it's when you start noticing things like that, where you have, like, I've never been like a super rigid routine person, even as a perfectionist. but but having a loose routine, a flexible routine,
Mhm.
uh definitely helps me sort of, uh stay on top of things, and it helps my mood, um and helps prevent some of that overwhelm.
Yeah, and just listening to what you're saying, I feel like the idea of self-care can be confusing for people because we might not think of the things that we're doing as self-care, but really they probably are. And so if you think you don't do anything for self-care, take it back a little bit and say, well, what do I do every day that makes me feel good or that makes me feel better? Or I have to do it every day, or I'm grumpy, or whatever it might be. And those are probably all some sort of self-care.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, like, what are you doing maybe that even helps prevent you from getting sick,
Running
or
away.
helps prevent you from running away? But, or even that silly little, like, cream on your feet at night, helps
Yeah.
prevent, your feet take a lot, like, they do a
They,
lot for you.
yeah, they do.
So it's important to take care of them. And you don't have to, like, but that then people jump to, well, I can't afford, or I don't have time for a petty, right? You
Right.
don't have to. That's not just like, it's just those simple things that just maintaining, um your health and your well-being, that contribute to those things. And if you are having a hard time thinking of things, well, what would you like to, like, what are things that you've always thought, oh, I'd like to really like to do that? Is it
Yeah.
not necessarily the big things, but little things that you can just interject
And
into
I
your.
I like the idea of like almost like a self-care challenge because if there are things that you've always thought about but haven't done, they might be a little bit outside your comfort zone. So maybe thinking of it as an experiment or a challenge for like a week or two, um, it might help you realize whether or not that's something that's helpful for you. Because all the things that we're mentioning that work for us might not work for you, and everybody's different. So figuring out what your own like non-negotiable self-care items are, um, and taking the time to do that, right? That's part of self-care again, is figuring out what those things are.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Anything else you'd like to add?
I think we talked about a lot, as usual.
As usual. Um, I know you really should listen. Our listeners need to start taking notes, I guess. Oh,
Yeah,
this
and
is
if you want to link up with us elsewhere, we're on Facebook on Self Care Cafe. We're on Instagram at Self Care Cafe, which is all one word, _official. We have a Patreon, and we have all that stuff linked in the footer of the show notes. So just scroll down to the bottom and all that stuff is linked right there. We also have a really cool um free downloadable called The Hunger Blueprint.
sweet.
Um, and it's supposed to help you figure out what works for you for your nutrition, right? Because we hear all the time, just tell me what to eat, right, Carrie?
Yes. Yes.
And
Over and over for years.
yeah, and I think that especially for my job, like someone coming to see the dietitian, most of the time people expect some sort of like meal plan from me or something. And that's not what I do. So my job is to give clients and people tools to figure out what works for them. And that's sort of what the Hunger Blueprint is all about. It's figuring out, well, what are the timings of your meals looking like? What does hunger feel like for you? Um, Sort of starting to explore what you need from your meals and your nutrition and how to
Yeah.
do
We feel like our job is to empower you
exactly.
to so that you basically dare to get to know your body. Is that the right,
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
because we always think it's like your body is your body, so that's your responsibility. But we are here to support you and give you the tools that you need to work with that
Yeah. And to be
with what you have.
comfortable hanging out in your own body. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Awesome. And I just want to give a kudos to Ashley because she is the designer. She's our brand manager and our designer. So she takes everything that we say and talk about and she puts it down on paper in beautiful fashion.
Oh,
Uh,
thanks, Carrie. It's my pleasure.
so kudos to you, Ashley.
Mm. Great. Well, we'll see you all next time.
Yes. Love you, latte.
Love you, latte.